A hole in the wall so deep you could stick your arm into it?
I'm very glad you said your arm.
My ego is large, but not that large.
What, your leg?
Okay, that makes more sense than what I said. Or face, or head. Yeah, no, I jumped to a conclusion there that says a lot about me. Okay.
Hold hands and close your eyes. It's midnight, and you're listening to the Ghost Story Guys.
Welcome to the Ghost Story Guys. I'm Brennan Storr.
I'm Paul Bestall.
And this is the show where we talk about spooks, specters, and all the other things watching us from the shadows beyond the campfire. Some conversations only make sense after the sun has set, and this is most definitely one. Thanks for tuning in. This is episode number 231, and we're coming to you from that tiny mountain cabin you dream about, but can never quite reach. Paul, my friend, Happy New Year.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to you and yours, my man.
Thank you. This marks my 10th year of doing Ghost Story Guys.
Wow. I think after 10 years you get a hologram of Jim Harold.
Sweet, I'll keep an eye on my mailbox.
Keep looking out for it.
And on this episode, to celebrate the beginning of our 10th season, we have two sets of listener stories. And I am very excited to get to both. As with the best of our listener shows, they balance spooky stuff with the sweet stuff, with the sometimes the bittersweet that comes with the paranormal. And so I'm very excited to get to those. But before we get to those, Paul, I want to share with our listeners something that I've shared with you, and I shared with our audience on Facebook what had happened. So I am now in Victoria. 2 weeks before I got here, I got a message from Nikki saying that I think we have a visitor in the apartment. Now, because we live on the ground floor, that can be either a mouse or a rat in the walls, or, a spectral presence. Either thing has happened, and either are equally likely. But essentially, at one point, she was walked into the living room, and the brand new PlayStation just turned itself on. And then she started getting interference on her cell phone. And then a couple other little weird electronic things. This all happened over the course of a week. And then finally reached a point where the toilet was flushing itself. Now, we've had this happen before. And of course, this is sort of the thing that presages your experience at your haunted house growing up. So we just said, okay, well, we must have a visitor in the house. Again, it's happened before. No big deal. Not going to think about it. And then roughly a week before I got here, she started to notice a smell in the kitchen. And again, it happens sometimes that we have horrible drains. We've been in the same apartment for 15 years now, and they never renovate anything. So it's a little bit, it can get a little bit aromatic. So she just put the drain stopper on, didn't think too much of it, until about half hour later, or thereabouts, when she heard our resident manager outside our door retching. So she went out to check on her, and it turns out that our next door neighbor had died a week ago, and her body had just been recovered by the resident manager. And that smell was, you guessed it, folks, decomposing body. And so, yes. Now, we didn't really know our next door neighbor. She was not a very agreeable lady, and she hated most of the people in the building. But the moment her body was recovered, all the weird shit stopped. That was it. No more toilet flushing, no more electronic stuff. It was over. And I genuinely think it was because she wanted it to be found.
It's, I remember years ago now, I watched a very disturbing documentary about a cleanup crew in New York who basically their job was that the city would contact them when they'd had a report of smells or liquid dropping from ceilings, those kinds of things. No. And basically they were just going round and removing decomposing bodies. And as they were talking about it, they were saying in certain occasions, it's the fluids dripping through that alert residents that there might be a problem. And I just thought, geez, and this was like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And they were saying, if it's been more than a couple of weeks, the floorboards have to be ripped, everything's gone because it's all, you'll never get rid of the smell and all that. And I just thought, Jesus. And they were saying, I think that on this, they were saying they went to about between 2,000 and 2,500 residences a year. And I thought, what?
That was the third death in our building in a month. And the second body that our resident manager had discovered.
Oh.
I know. I mean, whatever the woman is paid, it's not enough. And to make it worse, a couple days after I got here, we noticed a single police officer going to the building across the street, then followed minutes later by an ambulance, followed several minutes after by police supervisors. So we think it was a wellness check that turned into another body being recovered. And then the husband of one of the ladies who passed, she was the only one who was not, who passed and was found later. She was with her husband when it happened. And they're really lovely people, just such lovely people. They've been married for a long, long time. She passed. He was relying on his sister for help through it. And I want to say 2 days after the wife passed, the sister passed.
Oh,
I know we're starting off on a real up note here for 2026, folks. But
yeah. Well, a friend of mine, her grandparents passed a week apart from each other.
Well, to that point, I mean, we did. His name is Cliff, and we did invite Cliff. I ran into him in the hallway, and I said, "Hey, man, if you don't want to be alone, like, come hang out. We've known Cliff for years." And he very politely said, "I appreciate the offer," but he said, "I want exactly the other thing." He said, "I want to be around no one and nothing." And so we're worried about him, but guys from that generation, they do things a very certain way. And so all we can do is keep extending the invitation when we see him and hope that, he takes us up on it.
Absolutely. Very much so.
Well, Paul and I are alive, and most of the folks around us are too, most.
I'm mostly cheese now.
Yeah. I'm 90% cheese and whiskey by volume. And we're going to celebrate this new year and our freedom by telling you some ghost stories. But before we do, we have to thank our patrons.
This one's for the patrons.
Patrons, we could not do what we do without you. So thank you. Thank you, thank you. For real, guys. Every single person who downloads the Ghost Story Guys, you help make us who we are. But patrons, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube subscribers, you guys are the real MVPs. Without you, none of this big machine can go. So again, thank you from the bottom of our terrible hearts. And while we'd like to thank every single one of our supporters, we would especially like to thank our latest ones, and our latest one, and they are
Kimber Elena.
Again, thank you so much. We cannot tell you how much your support means to us. It all helps, advertising, things like that. But without our patrons, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube subscribers, we simply wouldn't be able to do the show. And so we are deeply indebted to every single one of you, past and present. And if you'd like to help support the show, you can do so by clicking the link in the show notes or by heading to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. Again, that's patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. And you get access to early, ad-free release, bonus conversations between myself and Paul, extra spooky episodes. I am having the mystique of Hans Holzer slowly disassembled in front of my eyes as I read his book, Ghosts I've Met, for patrons. And so much more, including our monthly live stream and our Ghost Force shoutouts. And again, you can get all of that by clicking the link in the show notes, becoming a friend of the cabin on Apple Podcasts, or by heading to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. All right, Paul, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with our first set of listener stories for 2026. All right, so we are going to get started. Again, we have 2 sets of listener stories for you on this episode. The first one is from Senia. And Senia says, "Hi, Brennan and Paul. I have a new story for you that I would love to get your thoughts on. But first, I wanted to say thank you so much for reading my email in the An Old-Fashioned Haunted House episode. It was awesome getting to share my experiences and hear input from you both. I've been holding off on sending in this story because, unlike my previous ones, this is about my current house, and I've been a bit reluctant to acknowledge anything lest it decide to act up some more. But things are already a bit wild around here this time of year, so I figured if it's going to kick off anyways, I might as well talk about it. And Senia, I couldn't agree more." So, Senia goes on to say, "The street that we currently live on was a single farm property that was later sectioned out into individual lots. Our lot is still the largest on the street and was a site of the original farmhouse. Our detached garage is actually an original structure. The house, however, has burned down at least twice. When we moved in, we didn't really think much about it, as the most recent fire burned the structure to the ground, meaning it had been rebuilt entirely and had passed several inspections after. Plus, the fire had been started by a tenant being irresponsible. rather than, say, an electrical fire or similar. More than that, I had been drawn to the property for years, and was so excited and happy to finally get to live there. Sounds like the start of a Dreamhouse Gone Evil horror movie, I know. When we moved in, I already had the feeling that we weren't the only occupants. While everyone else was out picking up pizza, more moving boxes from the old house, etc., and I was starting to unpack, I spoke to the house and explained who we were, why we were there, and that they were welcome to stay as long as they were respectful of the fact that this was our house now. I also felt compelled to open all the blinds and windows, welcoming in the sunlight and summer air as a form of cleansing. The space seemed to warm up to us after this, and I felt comfortable, safe, and welcome. Inside the house, at least. We did have some minor strange experiences. We got our puppy about a month after we'd moved into the property, and the second night she was home with us, I woke up to find a shadowy figure, crouched golem-style on top of her kennel, watching us sleep with its head cocked to the side. When I stirred in the bed, it seemed almost embarrassed. It quickly hopped off the kennel and went running down the hallway on all fours for a second before disappearing. I wasn't scared, which did feel odd even in the moment, but the puppy started fussing in her kennel a few seconds later, and I was caught up in getting her outside ASAP so she didn't have an accident. A few weeks after seeing the first shadow figure, I had woken up in the middle of the night with the puppy, and once she was settled again, stopped in the hall bathroom to take care of my own needs before climbing back into bed. On the way back, I saw another shadowy figure, this one a woman, sitting cross-legged on the ceiling with her long dark hair hanging down over the doorway to the bedroom. My brain interpreted her as a spider woman. Not like Spider-Man the hero, but an entity tied to spiders. Oh, I don't love that. And again, I wasn't particularly scared, but I did tell her, oh boy, I do not like that. I got the impression she was amused by this reaction, and she promptly disappeared. She's never shown up so clearly again, but she does still make her presence known now and then, mostly when we slack on chores. Outside of the house was a different story. The property felt very unwelcoming and just unhappy. There was a dilapidated shed in the backyard packed with old, empty bottles of various alcohol. A previous tenant had clearly been an alcoholic trying to hide their addiction. And a few feet from that was a 200-plus-year-old brick barbecue that had been filled in with trash and debris. It just didn't feel like our space, and we were about to find out why. About a week after meeting the others, my husband went out back to grill us some steaks. We'd done this countless times at our old house and had been careful about where we placed the grill. But when my husband stepped inside, literally a few feet away, to grab the steaks so he could throw them on, the entire side of the garage was on fire. He was thankfully able to put it out quickly with no real damage, but it was such a what the fuck moment. There was just absolutely no way the grill, in its current position, could have caught anything on fire. It was weird enough and worrying enough that I contacted my aunt and had her stop by for a cleansing. She also brought her pendulum, so once we'd walked the property and done what we could, we sat down to ask some questions. The first entity that responded told us he was a little boy around 11 or 12, which immediately had me squinting a bit. I said if it was really a child and really had no ill intentions, he was welcome to stay, but if he was trying to deceive us, he had to leave. He ended up staying and told us a bit more about the property, including that there were others with him, and there was something old on the property that was mad at us. Through further questions, we ended up putting together that it, something old, was upset because some trees had been removed from the property. They were partially rotten and dangerous, so they'd had to go, but we did feel bad we'd started off on a bad foot with whatever this was. After the cleansing, some apology offerings, and additional work to the property, things have been mostly quiet. We just make sure to tell the property/house anytime something is changing and why. A few more trees had to be removed, people visiting, new pets, and so on. Just in case. Activity this time of year, October to January-ish, always picks up a bit, and I think we get some things passing through, but I get the feeling our stable lot keep an eye on the visitors and keep things under control. I've only had a couple times where I went, nope, you're not allowed here. Time to get out. However, we do still have a bit of an odd fire thing happening. Candles reacting oddly, either very little fire or lots of fire, even on the same candle on different days, lighters dying more quickly or lasting forever, and flaring up randomly when in use, the wood fireplace inside staying blazing for longer than it should, the fire pit continuing to smoke long after we've put it out with a hose. Just small things like that. Recently, our dishwasher heating element got super hot. hot enough to deform and partially melt some plastic Tupperware, and then died completely a few days later. I was thinking about this later that day and kind of joked to my husband, it'd be great if our fire thing could keep things stable instead of making things too hot. When I opened the oven a few minutes later to check on dinner, the oven was way too hot, far beyond the 325 I'd set it to. I apologized out loud for being rude, and the heat immediately lowered to normal. Thankfully, dinner was fine other than that one part that had briefly caught, and I haven't had a flare like that again. I learned my lesson, though, and won't be asking our fire spirit for any favors again. I've included some pictures of our pup Cleo as dog tags, since she was mentioned in the story. And Senior Cleo seems absolutely adorable. She seems like just the sweetest thing.
She's adorable. What a beautiful little dog.
So, Paul, that's there's a lot going on there. That's really interesting stuff. The heat stuff scares the shit out of me. I don't mind telling you.
Yeah. I think when fire is involved in paranormal activity, it raises the bar a little bit because it's always quite disconcerting. Because at the end of the day, it's dangerous. No ifs, buts and maybes about it. I've never been in a situation where I've had a major fire in a house I've lived in. I have had an exploding grill and the odd tea towel catch fire now and again, but nothing that required assistance from firemen or anything like that. And even then, your stress levels get a bit raised, even if it's like a smouldering tea towel that you have to just wang in the sink. So when you've got half the garage on fire, I'd be nervous about it as well. And it always is attached to malevolent cases, isn't it, really, as well? There's a lot of poltergeist cases with fire involved. I mean, one of Canada's most famous ones is there's a lot of fire in that, the Amherst case.
Of course, yeah. Well, I feel like it's hard to have a cool and chill arsonist. It's cool it's hard to have a guy who's like, hey, I'm a fun spirit. Every now and again, I just like to set your garage on fire for a lark.
Well, as we've often postulated about personalities when you cross over, I'm sure there has been enough situations in the past where arsonists have died and have come back as fire bastards, really.
That's true. Oh, man, I never thought about that. Firebug ghosts.
Why wouldn't they? Wouldn't surprise me.
Just before Christmas, Nick and I went to go see a showing of Elf in theaters with a live orchestra playing the music. We went to that with a friend of hers from work and the friend's husband, and we went for dinner beforehand. And now I haven't had couples dinner with new people in a very long time. And somehow, I don't remember how, but somehow the conversation ended up talking about the hermit I heard the story of who lives outside of Revelstoke, who was kicked out of forest firefighting school because he had devised a plan to burn down an entire town. And let me tell you, this is not inspired dinner party conversation. The subject was changed pretty quickly.
Yes, as soon as the word arson is mentioned, I always remember that segment on Unsolved Mysteries with that guy in one of the southern states who was just going around burning things all the time. But it also opened my eyes to the fact that police investigators are very aware that most of the time the arsonist will be in the crowd watching the fire.
Right, because of the visual of it is such a strong thing for them.
Absolutely. But this guy used to video him, and you can hear him like going,
oh no.
I mean, they caught him in the end, but he'd murdered several people. I think he killed a former NFL player who'd opened a church somewhere and burnt it down, and he died. And they were after him for ages. But there was a copper, I think, as well, a few years ago, either a fireman or a police officer who was caught, and he was an arsonist.
Man alive. Well, yeah, this guy, from what I understand, the guy in the story I'm referencing, he was very intelligent, and he was literally, training to become a forest firefighter. And part of their training is you have to come up with you sort of have to put yourself in the mindset of an arsonist. How would you start? What is your fire plan? To show that you can sort of anticipate what does what in terms of its effects. And I guess this guy's plan was so good, was so airtight and detailed that they thought, no, this person is not psychologically well.
He was trying to pretend to be a fireman, not an arsonist.
How's that?
So he was pretending to be a fireman then, not an arsonist, because he was an arsonist.
Oh, there we go. Wow, that was a whole a mental double jump of which I was apparently incapable of making. Good Lord. Yikes.
Have you been on the Benadryl?
Yeah. Should have carved up before I did this thing.
Can you see a weird creature in my room with red eyes anywhere? Are you all
It's
right?
Jim Harold.
It's just mold.
Yeah, there you go. Well, at least it hasn't turned us into J.K. Rowling. You know, we're just hallucinating monsters. We're not becoming transphobes, so that's good.
Yeah, thank goodness. I'd rather be an arsonist.
Yeah, 100%. The other thing that occurred to me, though, just in terms of what Sina is experiencing, it sounds like what you would describe like as an elemental spirit.
Yes.
You know, if we wanted to sort of set aside the possibility of it just being like a real pissy arsonist come back from the grave, it kind of sounds, like a being who that's its thing is fire. You know, I remember years ago our family went through something like that where it was like both me and my mother separately, because again, I don't live anywhere near my family. At the time I was living in Victoria, my family was in Revelstoke. We were both smelling heat and fire. Like not fire, but heat. You know how heat can have a very particular smell? Like if it's like a hot element or a hot radiator or something. We were both experiencing that. And I actually, at one point, when Nick and I were driving back home that year, because it happened around the time I was coming home to visit, I had to pull the car over to the side of the road because I thought my leg was on fire. Whatever was causing the sensation of heat, it had gotten so intense that I thought like there was a fire in the seat of my car and that I was burning. And it never amounted to anything. It's, 10, 12 years ago now, so nothing came of it. But it was fucking bizarre.
I mean, this is the thing as well. I think it's only recently that people have begun to reconsider the possibility of it being elementally based rather than it being a haunting or something or a poltergeist. Because I've spoken to people and they're always saying when people are talking about particular cases, it's either a ghost or a hoax. There's no in between. It's
Weird.
Black or white. And so essentially elementals have always been around us. They've always been part of folklore in every culture on the planet. And so they didn't just stop hanging around just because we went, hey, science, technology. Right. The elementals are like, well, I don't really care about that. So why would it not?
Yeah. You wonder if there's some kind of connection between things like that and spontaneous combustion.
Oof.
Oh, have I hit on something?
No. It's just, I love that subject. It's terrifying, but I love it.
Whenever you hear about, whenever spontaneous combustion comes up in shows I listen to, they always kind of dismiss it because they say, well, it doesn't happen anymore. Once we got rid of, once we started making furniture for more fireproof stuff, this didn't happen anymore. It was just a function of time, of the materials being kind of used in the world at the time. So you feel that is not the case?
No, not at all. I think that's bobbins. The Wick effect isn't true. The Wick effect doesn't work.
And so for folks who don't know, can you describe what the Wick effect is?
So the Wick effect is basically claiming that the body acts like a giant candle. Okay. And so accepting the explanation of the Wick effect is based on the fact that the person agreeing with that doesn't understand the temperature it takes to turn bones to dust. Right? Now, crematoriums, their ovens get up to about 1800 degrees. Right?
Okay.
That is not hot enough to turn bones to dust. They have to.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because they have the ball-bearing drum.
Yeah, you have to basically put the skeleton and the ash into a giant drum full of big metal ball bearings, and they're just pulverized.
Of course, yeah,
and then they're purified, and that's what goes in your urn, right? So, if a crematorium has to get up to 1800 degrees and still can't burn bone, why do people in spontaneous combustion cases turn to dust?
Interesting. Right? I never thought about that.
Because if that temperature is that hot, right, I will not believe that a localized heat source of that magnitude would not combust everything. Because that's way above the combustible temperature of most things, and heat travels, especially in an enclosed space. So even in house fires, the body, it's not dust or anything. That's when your entire house goes up. There's still a body of some description, and usually in house fires, people die of smoke inhalation, not burned to death.
Of course, yeah.
And it's that kills them because they can't get out. So, in those circumstances, putting forward the Wick effect doesn't explain any aspect of it, but it's a scientific explanation that has been put forward and repeated continually ever since to explain it. But the wick effect cannot be demonstrated properly because when they do the wick effect, everything catches fire. And the thing that makes SHC cases so unique is the minimal damage that's caused to the whole environment. The whole environment. And that's the thing. I mean, the Mary Reeser case is a prime example of that. You know, there's only the famous photo where there's just the bottom portion of her leg left, right? Well, firstly, where's the rest of her gone, right? And then, why is the chair there? Why is the metal walking frame? It baffles me that people accept this. I think this is, like I say, I don't mean to insult people with it. I think this is entirely based on the fact that people don't understand how extreme heat has to be to reduce a body to ash. You are talking, you know, you're akin to like an industrial size incinerator. You know, we're talking like nuclear fusion temperatures.
Yeah, it's funny actually. Whenever Nick and I will watch a TV show where they have a pyre, and because obviously she worked in forensics, she knows a lot about, you know, bodies and decomposition and cremation. You know, they'll just kind of like start a couple small fires around a body and they'll walk away, and she's like, "That's not going to do shit." You know, the pyres are something that have to be maintained over the course of hours. You know, you don't just stick it on a beer, light it up, and then go away. You know, you are there for a while feeding that fire because you have to get it hot and you have to keep it sustained. Like, this is something that has to go on for a while.
If you're putting a bag of liquid on a fire, what's going to happen? So basically, that's essentially what a dead body is, isn't it? That's it.
Know,
it's going to go, poof, and all the liquid's going to come out. I mean, that's the other argument as well, is how does that happen if the human body is mostly made of water? For me, I think it is some kind of chemical reaction that causes some incredible internal fusion of some description. I'm not suggesting it's, you know, like in the old days, you'd read books and they'd be on about these special lines and you'd be like, Christ, I hope I don't live near a line because I might catch fire. Because this is one of the things that used to terrify you as a kid growing up, spontaneous human combustion, quicksand, you know. These were the things I was terrified about. You know, people wouldn't even get in baths after watching Jaws, never mind reading about spontaneous human combustion. So I just find it fascinating. I mean, the last recorded case was in Ireland in 2011.
Really?
Yep.
And so what were the circumstances there?
There was a guy just caught fire walking down the street. The coroner ruled it spontaneous human combustion.
Jesus, so just walking, holy shit. So yeah, you can't blame, you know, polyester furniture or whatever for that.
I remember seeing an interview with a British fireman, and they were on about a homeless person they'd found in a derelict building. And when they got there, he was on fire. And when the fireman, he said, I came over to him, and he basically said he'd got like a hole in his stomach, and this blue flame, like a Bunsen burner, was just ejecting out of it, just going
Jesus
it was like
Christ.
A gas leak. He said the guy sounded like a gas leak, and he was still alive. He was like crying out in pain and everything. Put him out and he died, obviously because of his burns. But he says it's the strange, I've never seen, he said, I've been to house fires, I've been to car crash fires, I've been to places where I've found bodies that have been burnt. I have never in my career seen anything like that at all. It was the freakiest thing he'd ever seen. I'm trying to think what that was on. But there was a whole episode about it, and then you get the guy going, oh, well, it's just the wick effect. I mean, the other thing about the wick effect as well is you need an ignition source to start it. That's how they do it. And so you basically have to wrap it in a flammable material. You have to have fuel, and you have to have an ignition source. Whereas in the majority, I mean, the strangest one I ever heard, because I did a whole episode on spontaneous human combustion about 4 years ago, and I was so excited to speak to Larry Arnold about his book Ablaze, because that's just amazing. There's a case in that where a woman shouted, I can't remember if it was her daughter or a friend or something, and asked her to go to the shop and get her some cigarettes. She went to the shop, came back, and she'd burnt to death. 15 minutes.
Wow.
And there was something really weird about that.
I mean, that alone is pretty fucking weird.
Well, yeah, but there was also like stuff really close to her. I mean, I think her arms and her legs were still there, but the whole torso and head had gone.
Jesus Christ.
And that was like a minimal amount of time. There was a fireman in Canada, I think it was, who burnt to death, the fire service said, oh, well, he must have been smoking in bed. Family said he didn't smoke. He was a fireman. Oh, well, he must have been smoking. But he didn't smoke. Yeah, he must have been smoking. Oh, is that it then?
Yeah, I guess I'll go fuck myself.
Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing as well. In certain cases, people go to their properties and the door handles are so hot, it hurts. But the body's not next to the door. It's like in the back of the house or in the bedroom or something. So if it's that hot to heat a door handle, why's the rest of the house not gone up?
It's almost like there's a certain frequency that's resonating and heating up. Because you wonder, like I wonder if you were to feel other pieces of metal in the house, if they would also feel warm. If there's something, some frequency that's vibrating, or something that only is resonating with metal, that is causing that to sort of maybe microwave. And I don't know. I don't know enough about. I know I can burn shit plenty. I just don't know how it works.
There was another case here, I think from Britain. Hoarder. His house was full of newspapers. He burnt to death.
But the newspapers were fine.
No.
Jesus Christ.
There was like a thick yellow film all around the house.
Interesting.
There's a few cases where that's been reported, like a waxy substance on the walls and the windows and stuff.
Could it be the fat from the body?
Could be.
Oh.
I mean, if you can get hold of a copy of A Blaze, after about 4 or 5 cases, you'll suddenly think, hang on. I'm not saying it's paranormal. I think there's a scientific reason for it.
Right.
I think there's some kind of chemical reaction in the body. Because this is the other thing that people, like I said earlier, and I've gone on a tangent here, I do apologise. As I said, most of your body is made of water. But we also know that water or liquid only has to get to a certain temperature to turn to steam.
Sure.
It's part of the heating process. So if you have such an intense amount of heat that suddenly erupts through, I don't know, medicine or a chemical reaction due to food or enzymes in your stomach, or some part of your body's acidic level isn't quite right, because at the end, you've got to remember your stomach's full of acid, and yet your stomach's able to contain that because the stomach is designed to hold that level of acid in, but it's strong enough to dissolve food.
Well, some of us more than others, so let's put it that way. But generally speaking.
So that alone said, well, we know liquid evaporates at certain temperatures. Most of the body is water. Therefore, as soon as that temperature gets to 100 degrees and above, you're going to start to evaporate. But that doesn't explain anything to do with the bones. And that's where all these scientific explanations fall apart, because they cannot explain, and they don't explain, why that occurs in SCH cases. They just go, it's the Wick effect. But that doesn't do that. Wick effect, I think, gets up to about 600 degrees normally when they do it.
Yeah, that's nowhere near what it would need to be.
Nowhere near. It's not even near enough to burn a body properly.
Interesting.
And you only have to look at several photos to look at that and think, what on earth has happened there? And that's the other thing. Why are there bits left? Why is there half a leg left? Why is there an arm left? Why that bit? Why that bit? If the other leg's been burnt away, why is that bit left? I think the Mary Risa one, the prize, you can see her stocking and her shoe still on her foot.
I think I've seen that photo.
Why is that not burnt? If there's so much heat, literally 3 feet away from her, why is the shoe not burst into flames and gone?
Sure. It's an enduring mystery, man.
I'm all in, but like I said, I don't think it's paranormal. I think it's chemical, but I've no idea why. But yes, if you really want to read more, try and find a copy of Larry Arnold's book, A Blaze. It's brilliant.
He put it back into publication, didn't he? Or back into print?
Yes. That, and Jenny Randall's also wrote a book about spontaneous human combustion. So either of those two books. And don't read them whilst eating. There's plenty of pictures in both.
Yeah, I've seen some of them, and hard pass. Just before we can move on to the next set of stories, I want to tell you about something I was reading today. It was an article in The Atlantic. It was about a woman who had schizophrenia and then didn't. And it is part of this thing, which is this emerging idea that schizophrenia is not always one thing, that it can, and in the case of this woman, it appears, and there's a number of other cases where this appears to be true, and this isn't paranormal, folks, it's just kind of cool, it is in fact a symptom of autoimmune disorder. Because I guess this woman, she, for 20 years, had essentially all the symptoms of schizophrenia. Her daughters described being raised by her. It sounds very painful, like a very difficult environment to grow up in. She was a very disturbed woman. And they would give her, they gave her meds for schizophrenia. That didn't seem to quite address everything. It would help a little bit. But sometimes the doctors would say, well, no, I don't think she actually has schizophrenia. And then she got lymphoma. And the cocktail of drugs you get for lymphoma, in addition to chemotherapy, there's another one called, I think, rituximab. And part of it is an immunosuppressant or something along those lines. And after a course of these drugs, her schizophrenia was gone. And there have been a number of these cases, not many, but a number where they have discovered that just after treatment for autoimmune disorder, the symptoms of schizophrenia go as well. So they're thinking it may be, in some cases, not all cases, of course, but in some cases, what is diagnosed as schizophrenia is actually a symptom of something else. So I thought it's fascinating to know that our understanding of the mind and body are still evolving.
Well, yeah. I mean, it still astounds me that people just accept psychiatric evaluation as though it's been with us for centuries, when it's like one of the newest parts of the medical world. You had schizophrenia 100 years ago, you were locked away and that was that. Thank you very much. If you were lucky, they might drug you a lot. If you were really unlucky, they'd get the ice pick out.
100%.
So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, vertigo is a prime example. Everybody thinks vertigo is a symptom of certain things. It can be caught as a virus. You can get viral infected by vertigo.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Exactly, because most people don't. Unless you get it or you know somebody that has it, you wouldn't know that, because the vertigo is classed as a particular symptom about your ears. But you can get viruses that cause you to suffer from the effects of vertigo. And that's a fairly recent development.
I worked with a guy who his mother used to talk about him because he claimed to have vertigo. He claimed to have a lot of things, so I didn't always believe him everything he said, but the vertigo at least seemed to be legitimate. And his mother said that he got it because of exposure to a chemical fire. And I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. Sometimes we used to joke that that was part of his supervillain origin story because we hated working for him. But that was her claim, at least. And
I think we've all met somebody who's got Munchausen syndrome, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. And folks, the article it was not The Atlantic, it was The New Yorker. It's called "Mary Had Schizophrenia, Then Suddenly She Didn't." And the subhead is "Some psychiatric patients may actually have treatable autoimmune conditions, but what happens to the newly sane?" It's by Rachel Aviv. It's dated July 21st, 2025. It is behind a New Yorker paywall, but if you're canny, you know that that is not necessarily a barrier. So, I mean, you can subscribe to the New Yorker as well, but or you can just read the article through means. The New Yorker's got enough money. Fuck them.
Just copy and paste it into a Word document and then you'll be able to remove all the blockages. Seems to work on Department of Justice documents. Our next series of stories is from our listener, Felicia. Good evening, Brennan. So happy that you replied. I have admittedly been so busy with work that I haven't had time to sit down and reply until now. I have lots I wanted to share with you. I was very inspired by the Haunted Canada episodes, especially since I am Canadian, although I'm Indigenous, so I'll try to format this email so that it's easy to read. I've been wanting to write in for years. I, like some other listeners, have been listening to you and Paul through many major life events. I'm also a patron member. Woo! I love the show, and I found it in 2020 during the pandemic, and it's become my favourite podcast of all time. Like I mentioned, I'm Indigenous from the Mi'kmaq community in New Brunswick. I'm a teacher and educator, and I work in our community and teach curriculum and traditional knowledge and culture. I grew up here and have lived here for most of my life, minus some wandering in my 20s. Growing up with my family, ghosts and spirits were very normal and part of everyday life. Ghosts or spirits are woven into our cultural stories, and spirits and ghosts are very much important and part of our culture and spirituality. I never thought twice about it, as my mother, grandparents and extended family all pretty well believe in the supernatural. Even before my time, my great-grandmother was well known to be sensitive to the paranormal and beyond that. There are several family members in our line that have stories. An example of living with the concept of spirits or ghosts is how my family would always tell me to give a tobacco offering in the river next to our community to please the spirit of the water so it wouldn't drag anyone away into the falls. I always do this even to this day, and a lot of our stories are about respecting the natural world, spirits, or life of the places we grew up. I myself am very sensitive to the paranormal, and I've had several experiences, and it's happened so regularly that I just accept it as true. I'm not sure about what is beyond, but I know there is more going on that we can see. And I also believe in my culture's spirituality. It's hard to explain, but I will know when a presence or spirit is around me. I think some people are more in tune or sensitive to this than others. For example, one of my brothers says he isn't and doesn't feel anything, and I think different people's senses could be sharper or weaker, depending on what factors. To that, I have no idea. From a young age I've had experiences, and seeing it for myself has always emboldened my belief in the strange. I've many stories, but I thought I'd outline some highlights. Also, I have some more New Brunswick stories, and I also know a folklorist from New Brunswick who may be able to add more too. My first paranormal encounter was with a shadow person. When I was around 8 years old, my parents, brothers and I were out later that night than expected. We had to do groceries and only got around to shopping at night. My parents pulled up in our driveway, popped our trunk and handed me the keys. They asked me to do them a favour and unlock the door while they gathered the bags. I agreed and wandered up to our door to unlock it. And for context, our front door led into the kitchen, and in our kitchen was a small closet that we called the pantry. When I turned the key and pushed it open, I was met with a dark figure standing in our kitchen. I remember my blood running cold like ice going through my body. I was frozen, and I felt like this figure was staring back at me. It was a shadow man, like many people had described. It had no features on the figure, but I could tell it was a man. After a moment, the shadow man turned away from me and walked through the door into our pantry. What was strange was that he walked through the solid door. He didn't open it. It was then that I gasped, and my parents not far behind me. I freaked out and told them everything I'd just seen, that a man had gone into the pantry. I remember my parents being really alarmed and dropping everything, my dad flipping on the kitchen lights and opening the pantry door. He opened it and was met with nothing. It was a closet, so there was no way anyone could have gone anywhere else. Both my parents were perplexed and asked me maybe if I'd imagined it or a shadow, or perhaps it was just a trick of the light. But I knew what I saw. I was awake, clear-minded, and I've never forgot that moment. My heart was pounding. It took me a while to calm down, and for the rest of the night I felt uneasy. I remember walking through my house searching for this mysterious figure, but he was gone, to my knowledge. This was the first instance of many where I started to be followed by this figure. 2 days later, I decided to take a bath in the middle of the day. It was a Sunday, and I was relaxing. I drew a bath and took my toys with me to play. Our bathroom had one of those frosted glass doors that shut over instead of a curtain. It was frosted so you couldn't make out the details of the room very well, and for context I'd locked myself into the bathroom and there were no other doors. I knew I was alone in there, and as I was sitting in the water playing, something seemed to block the overhead light. The tub got dark. My head snapped up and I saw a dark figure, blurry because it was behind the frosted glass. It stood there for a moment and then strolled by. This was no trick of the light. It walked like a person. I remember being so afraid and paralysed that it took everything in me to muster the courage to get out of the bath. When I opened the frosted glass doors, no one was in the bathroom, of course. I was terrified, however. I knew somehow that this was the same shadow man from a few days earlier. I had a hunch. And after this, I was terrified to take baths for a while and would only shower quickly. The third instance was a few days later when I was playing outside. We would often go to play outside to kill time. There wasn't much to do up here in the woods of New Brunswick. The nearest city was 2 hours away, and the town nearest our reservation was very small. My siblings and I would often spend our days playing outside in the woods and in sand pits. And that was super fun back then. We just rolled down the sand and sled down it like snow. Good times. Anyway, it was late in the day, and I went inside to look for my parents. I searched the house and I couldn't find them. I couldn't remember what it was I wanted to ask, but it was important enough for me to seek them out. Deeper on our property is an old cabin. Sometimes my family would go up there to hang out. I figured, well, maybe Mum and Dad have gone up to the cabin. Sometimes they'd go up there to have their adult conversations, like about bills or arguments and stuff. It was a common enough occurrence, so I figured, it'll take me about 5 minutes to walk up there. So up the hill I go into the forest. I was a little scared because I was still only 8 and the sun was starting to set, but I figured, my parents will be up there and I'll be able to endure this short walk to the cabin and then I'll be safe with them. So off I go, hurrying along and staying vigilant for bears. I walked through the birches and ferns quickly, turning the bend, relieved to see the cabin. I walked up to it, pushed the door open, and I was horrified to see that there was nobody there. Horror filled my little self as I realised I'm in the forest, at night, in this creepy dark cabin with the sun going down, all alone. I remember the golden sun burning through the dark silhouettes of the trees, and the overwhelming sense that I should not be out here alone. I felt tricked. I didn't see anything, but I felt the similar presence of the shadow man, and I felt like I'd been tricked. I think, fuck this, and I book it. I turn and start to run back home, and as I'm running home I hear a voice in my ear whisper very clearly, "Don't leave." Pure terror for me. I'm in my 30s now and I still remember this vividly. I'm in tears, my heart pounding as I made it back to the house and ran inside. I don't think I've ever run as fast in my life. Hell no is what I thought. My parents were there when I got back and confused about where I'd been. I'm not sure where they'd been to this day. Anyway, I explained everything to them and how I'd heard a voice. My dad didn't believe me, but my mum did. I told her that I am definitely being haunted and I don't know what to do. She comforts me and tells me that she will call my grandfather to help. By the way, my dad's an arsehole and we're estranged now. My grandfather will be laced in these stories. He was a very well-known, respected Mi'kmaq elder. He believed me right away and told my mother and I not to worry. He'd take care of it. The very next day he came over with his smudging shell and sage, among other medicines, and he smudged our house and property and told the spirit to go away and leave me alone. He then told me that any time I felt like a spirit was bothering me, just to ask him and he'd get rid of it. After my grandfather did this, I never saw the shadow figure again, which leads me into my next story.
Wow, okay, so that's a hell of a start.
Goodness.
Whenever you got something leading you out into the fucking woods, you are in trouble. That is both my, within persona on the show nightmare and my literal nightmare. For years, I used to be afraid of going outside in the winter during the sunset hours. I don't know why, but something about it used to freak me out. And it was something about the quality of light, I don't know. But the idea of something luring me out into the distant woods as the light is failing, pure nightmare fuel.
Is it after you watched that documentary called 30 Days of Night?
Oh, man. Did I? Yeah. That hard-hitting expose of what's really going on in Barrow, Alaska. Of what Danny Houston was really doing before he became famous.
Ignore the plot holes. Just enjoy the ride.
Yeah. You gotta, sometimes some movies are just good enough. You think, I'm not too worried about it. Like last night we watched the last Mission Impossible movie, The Final Reckoning. And I'd seen it in theaters, and the stunts were incredible, but the plot, I thought, there's some issues here. But watching it again, at home, no, it just, you think, yeah, sure, there's some stuff that doesn't add up, but I don't give a shit because Tom Cruise is jumping from airplane to airplane in the sky, and all is right with the world.
Yes, he's hanging around North Yorkshire, being crazy.
That may be his most dangerous stunt yet.
Yes, you've got to be careful in Harrogate.
So I've heard.
Harrogate is the place that Agatha Christie was discovered after she disappeared.
Right, of course. I remember talking about this. Okay.
Yeah, my cousin got married in the hotel she was found at.
Oh, interesting.
Not at the same time, I'd like to point out.
Yeah, I was going to say, wink.
70 years between the events there. I don't think that.
Sure.
Yeah.
You have your story, I have mine.
Very respectable side of the family, my cousin and his mum and dad.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Uncle Jeff. I know you listen.
Hello, Uncle Jeff.
Sir Jeff.
What did you do to Agatha Christie, Jeff? What did you guys do?
Hey, don't mess with him. He's trained special forces.
Man, Paul was talking mad shit about you, Jeff.
He knows me well enough to know that I do. Love him to bits. Love him and my Auntie Nethia to bits, and my cousin Julian and his wife.
Hello, Jeff.
So there's a lot going on there, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, this absolutely has to be some kind of. Well, I don't know. I was going to say I had one thing in mind, but I actually don't know, because this just dovetails back into the world of shadow people, and there's so much of that shit that we don't know. You know, like I did a guest spot recently on Where Did the Road Go, where I talked about that, and it's like some of the reading I did, you just as you start to think you have one thing figured out, it kind of takes on a slightly different form, and all of a sudden makes no sense. But I think it kind of running and hiding in places, that is a very. I'm seeing that more and more, like almost like doorways are a kind of portal or something.
Yeah, it gives it depth as well when it starts to react to its environment more than
100%.
Because often you'll get a lot of stories where people are saying, you know, it was just stood there in the doorway, or I could see it in the corner of my room. And yes, you can pass some off as perhaps sleep paralysis. But once again, as I always say, why does sleep paralysis cause people to see shadowy men wearing fedora hats? What? So they're fairly freaky enough. But when you've got one actively looking like it knows what's happening, and it seems to react to the environment or any changes to it, and it just goes, "Yeah, I'm off now. Bye," and then wanders about like, What are you talking about? No,
it's that thing where again, ghosts are one thing, because it seems like generally speaking, they have a want, right? Like they want to be connected to their loved ones, or they want to be seen or heard, or they want to move on to whatever comes next. But with these guys, they're intelligent, and you have no fucking idea who or what they want. You know, are they? Because that's the scariest thing when you're talking about any of this shit, is you're talking about a fundamentally non-human intelligence. And at that point, I mean, everything we know is out the window, because every single chain of reasoning we can use is still happening within our heads. It's still based in human logic. And if it's possible these things don't operate according to that, well, who knows what the hell they could be then? Or who knows what the hell they might want, or how they think.
Absolutely. I think it's very easy to brush them all off with a broad brushstroke, but I think the more you learn and the more you discover and the more experiences you hear from people, there seems to be tiers of behaviour in them. You know, as we hear here, you've got reaction, you've got movement, you've got enticement, you've got communication on some level. That's different gravy to waking up in your bedroom and seeing a funny figure in the corner.
That's it. And I think like that's the thing that's always used to hand wave it away, is like, oh, you woke up and you saw some laundry that looked like a chair, you know, a bunch of laundry on a chair that looked like a guy. Okay, maybe, yeah, that's definitely happened to me. But not, you woke up, you saw some laundry that looked like a guy, and then that guy ran into the next room. That's not a thing. No. And if it is, you should do your laundry more often.
If the laundry's taking itself to the washroom, perhaps you should do it more regularly.
Yeah. This is a bad sign. Like we just watched this direct-to-video movie from the 90s called Twisted Justice. It stars David Heavener, who did a bunch of these kind of movies in the 90s. And he plays this, the whole thing's it's not played for laughs, but he is very clearly in a very different movie, or he thinks he is. But his character, this police detective, he sleeps in like white long pajamas in a tub.
Right.
And whenever he gets up, he is covered, like, the white pajamas are just stained to a nightmarish degree. And If your laundry looks like David Heavener in Twisted Justice, then shadow people are the least of your worries. It's going to make sense to like 1.5 people listening to this show, but I swear to God, if you look like, again, if your shit looks like David Heavener, you've done something wrong. At that point, the shadow people might be coming as an intervention.
Maybe
we were
what it
haunting
is.
you, but now we're just kind of worried about you, man.
Yeah. A washing tablet company has sent them round. That's what it really is.
The most long tail of marketings. Yeah, Theo gets it. You got it, Theo.
I don't know why he's shouting.
Great. Well, I'll keep an eye on shadow people behind you.
Okay.
It reminds me of when, do you remember when we did the Clap for the Hat Man episode? It's about 3 years ago now. But Anthony did the research for us on that one. Yeah. And his wife, Krista, had a Hat Man turn up in their house.
Yeah.
And she didn't know that he'd been working on the research for the episode. Don't love that.
I've dealt with worse.
I'm just imagining the Hat Man coming into your pub and getting the shit kicked out of him by the king of the Romany. Or the son of the king of the Romany, all 6'9" of them.
Yeah. Shotgun Frank in one corner. Dennis and his blades in the other. And then you've got the king of the Romanies wandering about. Great times.
Shadow Man does not stand a chance.
Switchblade Malk as well. He was another.
Jesus Christ. What a menagerie of characters you've interacted with over the course of your life, my friend.
Yes, certainly have. And more to come, no doubt.
Oh, I have no doubt. All right, so continuing on with the story. This next section is called Skademuch, which, according to Felicia, is a spirit or ghost in our language that follows you. When my grandfather was young, he lived here too. He was actually born on a reservation at home in the 1930s, not in a hospital, and he didn't have an official birth certificate until the 60s. He was one of the last indigenous people to be really off the grid in his youth. My ancestors before that all lived off the land, or mostly partially off the land here. My family lived very rurally on our reservation, and there was very little to no work, so they survived off the land and by hopping the train. It was a train for mining, not a passenger train. They would literally jump on the train as it passed through the community to get to town, to do odd jobs. Sometimes it was lumber work, sometimes selling crafts or signs. Keep in mind, this is my grandfather's story from his youth that I'm now telling you. This would have happened about 1953. My reservation has 2 sides to it. This division is no longer there because the roads have been developed more and our population on the reserve is bigger than it ever was. The dirt road between the 2 sides has been paved and built up. Some of our reservation's residents lived on the other side, one of them being my grandfather's cousin/friend. My grandfather had visited his cousin and stayed a little too late. He realized this and told him, "Well, I better head home." He was not excited to venture out into the dark, but he was young and convinced himself he was brave and could do it. He had to go through the trail to get home. As he was walking, he began to hear footsteps behind him. When he heard them, he stopped. They stopped. He turned around, and nothing was there, so he figured he was imagining it. As soon as he started walking again, he could hear the footsteps. Again, he stopped to look. Again, nothing. My grandfather began to hurry, the footsteps following along diligently. He figured this time he wasn't going to stop. He was going to surprise whoever his stalker was by jumping around. So he did just that, and when he turned, he was met with the sight of a small fir tree. Confused, but relieved, my grandfather laughed it off. He thought he was silly for being afraid of a tree, although he didn't remember passing it when he'd walked by a few moments before. It was unusual, but it was just a tree, so he kept on. Grandpa hurried through the trail until he was home. The footsteps were running behind him, and he was scared. When he reached home, he was so relieved to be there safely. My grandfather proceeded to tell his grandfather and mother about what had happened. His grandfather explained that it was a spirit, a Skademuch that had followed him and likely wanted to play tricks on him. He told him not to be afraid and that all he needed to do was step aside and let them walk by. He said you need to tell it to keep going, or siawatsit in our language. And Felicia, if I mispronounced that, my apologies. My grandfather nodded, and he kept that advice with him for life, and he passed that down to all of his children and us grandchildren. Anyway, my grandfather told him about the odd fir tree, and that he'd go chop it down the next day in the light. In the morning, he took an axe and traveled back out into the trail to do just that. To his surprise, the tree was no longer there. That always scared my grandfather. but he loved to tell this story. Actually, I just found an excerpt from my grandfather about this story, and it's in the cadence of how he used to speak. How special. "We had one about Scadamooch," says Sewell. "Do you ever walk at night and feel like someone is following you? Well, my grandfather says that's Scadamooch. Scadamooch is a spirit that emanates from the body and travels. Sometimes the person who's died wants to get revenge on you because he didn't get along with you during his lifetime, so he'll follow you and then pick a fight with you. My grandfather always said if you weren't scared of him while he was living, you're not going to be scared of him when he's dead. So what you do is you jump aside and say, Siawatsit, or keep going. I've got 2 or 3 stories where that happened to me, and they never bothered me after that. In my lifetime, I've had such a spirit follow me while walking the roads in our community. It has happened to me twice, and each time I have done what my grandfather and his grandfather has said to do. I moved out of the way and told it to keep going. Bonus points if you say it in our language. I've always wondered if the spirit is the same one or different ones." This is very similar to a phenomenon that my cousin and I experienced, and I've talked about this on the show before, when we were walking around Revelstoke very, very late one night. We were on the Greenbelt, which is it's a what would you call it? Like a dike, I guess. It's the top, walking along the top of, it's a trail on top of a dike by the river. And we thought we were being stalked by a cougar. So we just assumed that's what it was, which is, not awesome, obviously, but it's not paranormal because it was quite late and we were up on top of the path and it was down in the trees. And then I was talking to, or I was approached by a friend of my family, a guy named Jeff. And Jeff, if you're still listening to the show, hello. Hello to my Uncle Rob, if you're still listening to the show. But he told me that he'd had a similar experience, and he named the area, and it's exactly the same area my cousin and I were in. He said it's not a cougar, it's not an animal. He said it just seems to be in this one area. It seems like something will follow you. And the thing I really found interesting about Felicia's perspective here is this idea that you just say, hey, keep going, and you get out of its way. Because same thing with the shadow people, I think we've got this notion that we're on the top of the heap. So this thing must have something to do with us or must want something from us. When in actual fact, it just as well think, get out of here, you scumbaggy lower physical life form. You are an annoyance in my path.
Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. That it is fascinating. I love learning things from other cultures. Really, really kind of pulls you in, doesn't it? It's fascinating to hear these kind of ways you deal with them. I mean, that's brilliant. You just get out of the way and go on then, on your bike, get out.
Yeah, that's it.
But wise words again from the grandfather. If you weren't scared of them in life, why would you be scared of them when they're dead?
I mean, in fairness, I can't see him, dude. I can't see him.
He thinks you can't see him.
Oh, yeah, I'm just going to start, shadow boxing the air in front of me. I'm just swinging my fists, Ghost, and if I happen to hit you, this is between you and my knuckles.
Well, like Mr. Hyde says to Griffin in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, he's always been able to see him. He just liked to pretend he couldn't.
Since I remember how that ends, this has taken on a very dark turn.
Yes, that's one of the best segments of comics I like to let people who don't read comics read. Which
is saying something, but that's the most accessible of the Alan Moore League of Extraordinary Gentlemen comics. Boy, those get weird, like everything with Alan Moore does.
Well, I like them.
Oh, I do too. But they're still weird.
Yeah.
I can imagine
if you
that
much.
Well, okay, that's good too. There's a line. All right. Well, we contemplate exactly what that line is for old Alan Moore, which is really not something we can talk about on this show. We're going to take a quick break for some ads.
The Crossroad Train Tracks. There's a crossroads just outside of our reservation that goes through a swampy area. It's in the thick of the woods on a highway that's not well maintained, but one of the only ways to get to our reserve. I absolutely hate this place. It's a crossroads technically because train tracks cross the highway. It's a spooky, dark area even during the day. When I was a little girl, every time we would pass this area, I'd hold my breath and look into the woods, searching for something. I felt a presence for sure. I hated driving through there at night, and I'd often see shadows or something in the woods that'd catch my eye. For years it went on like this. Finally, I asked my grandfather if he knew anything about the area, because he probably would, and he told me it was definitely haunted. He wasn't sure what, but he said that when he was younger, people used to see balls of light there, kind of like the will-o'-the-wisp. He also told me that there was a creature living deeper in the forest there, not far from that area, called Genu. Genu is a giant creature in our folklore stories that is similar to a Wendigo, but it's unique. It's almost like a cross between a Wendigo and a Bigfoot-type creature. It's also potentially corporeal or incorporeal, depending on its circumstances. A lot of spirits and creatures in Mughmaq culture are like this. At least this is how my grandfather always describes it. It's like they could shift between worlds and states. They are supernatural after all. He told me that he found a tree with huge claw marks on it deeper in that area that were far too big to be a bear. He then proceeded to grin and asked me if I wanted to go see and explore, and I promptly said no. Although I wish I would have now, because I'm not sure where the location is since he passed. I still avoid that area on foot. I'll only drive through it now. There has been some clear cutting in that area in the last 5 years, unfortunately, and I find that the vibes have changed. I can't explain it. I often wonder if whatever it was has been disturbed, or it's moved on due to this.
I mean, I really do think that there is a big element of, like, part of the madness of North America is the fact that we just willy-nilly built on top of shit. Without any sense of connection or any sense of respect for the land, we're just like, hey, that looks like it would be great for a Jamba Juice and a Curves Fitness Center. what was I watching? I was watching something recently, and there are these great plains and fields. And I was watching Robert Altman's Thieves Like Us, which is, I can't remember where it was shot. I think it was shot in Louisiana. But there's all these places which are wide open fields and empty spaces. And I thought, it was shot in, I think, the 70s. And I thought, boy, I bet that's all full of Best Buys now.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's something to that. I think, like, obviously the country itself was bought by blood. But I think in addition to that, I think we just steamrolled over everything. And we thought, well, hey, our dick's bigger than yours, so we win. And the land basically just said, move in, you dipshit. We're going to drive you crazy from the inside.
Yes, welcome.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So again, I do think there is something to that. And also, I'm very much a student of the, or a proponent of the, like, cryptids are temporary manifestations. I really do think that's a thing. I think, like, maybe some of them are like animals, like the thylacine is just something that's here and we just, haven't properly found it yet. But I think others are this, like Keel used to posit this, it's a way for intelligences that exist outside our physical realm to interact with ours. I do think there's something to that.
Good for you.
If you can't think of anything nice to say, just mute Bren's side of the call.
No, I think there's a lot to that, but I don't think we've got 16 hours to pull it apart.
Well, give me just a elevator pitch, or a what do you call it? Just like a tagline or a slug line.
I believe that there certainly has to be some kind of paranormality to reports of certain cryptids. I would suggest that probably Dogman would be the only one that jumps out off the top of my head, because there is nothing in the fossil record that suggests a creature like that has ever existed at any point on the planet. Whereas we know large apes have lived amongst us for thousands and thousands of years until only recently. I certainly think that's what's happening with the Wolfman sightings here on the east coast of England. I certainly think they're more spiritual than physical.
I hadn't heard about this. What's the score there?
That's Paul Sinclair's Wolflands. That's what that's all about.
Oh, okay. I still have not seen that film. I think it's finally available here on Amazon, so I got to watch that.
Yeah, that is basically 6 or 7 people that have had face-to-face encounters with wolfmen.
Interesting. So, this is a bit of a spoiler, obviously, but like, what are they seeing? Like a Beast of Gévaudan kind of thing, or like a full-on like a
werewolf,
American, like a werewolf,
an upright bipedal wolfman.
Son of a bitch!
When you watch it, tell me which one of them is the scariest story you hear, because they're not just Paul talking about them. It's Paul speaking at the location with the witness.
Oh, okay.
So he goes to all the locations where people have had one. There is one that I find particularly unnerving.
one story, location, or both?
Both.
Okay. Let me see if that's streaming here, because I might watch that tonight. I know Nick and I, we're getting a little tired of terrible 90s thrillers.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great documentary, and I can't wait for the second one, whether I'm in it or not.
Has that been decided, or is that...
It's still filming at the minute.
Oh, right. Okay. But has your presence been sort of confirmed, or...
No.
Okay. Wink.
No, it has, no winking about, no.
Oh, okay.
Besides, I might be too busy. I might have another iron in the fire, but we'll talk about that on a different day.
Okay, all right. I'm always interested to hear about what Paul's got going on. You can't quit on me, though, because the show cannot be Ghost Story Guy.
I would never do that to you, my friend.
But you were saying something when I interrupted you.
No, I was just being deliberately vague.
Oh. Paul deliberately vague Bestall.
Yeah, most of my romantic life, that.
Mine is clueless. Brennan, romantically clueless Storr.
Brennan Silverstone.
Oh, man.
That was on last night, and it had a content warning when it was shown here on the BBC last night. It's on at 11 o'clock at night, and they had said, "This film contains language and themes that may offend modern viewers." Right, firstly, the film's 30 years old, and secondly, it's on after 11 o'clock at night. If you're watching that, I don't think you're going to be offended.
I've never seen it.
It's surprising. I have to say, I avoided it for a couple of years, and I watched it, and it made me laugh more than I thought it would.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it was directed by Amy Heckerling, I think.
It's certainly the best thing Alicia Silverstone's done, I think, in that period, easily. She's brilliant in it.
Yeah, it was Amy Heckerling, who also did Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It set the tone and tenor for teen comedies for the next 10 years. Again, I haven't seen it, so I can't speak as to its quality, but I think the fact that it survived this long in the culture, it says enough. Absolutely.
I mean, come on, though. Modern viewers, it's 30 years old. It's not like we're talking about that Batman film from the Second World War, is it?
Well, or Jingle All the Way, where one of the kids calls one of the villains an F slur while they're beating the shit out of him.
Well, it's like that delightful film that some people think is a wonderful children's film, Short Circuit, with one of the main characters who was blacked up all the way through it.
Oh, yeah, that's, what's his name? I can't remember. Oh, yeah, his name's gone out of my head, but yeah, that's another issue.
That and Soul Man, very problematic film. And they're both under 40 years old. We shouldn't forget.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Funny enough, actually, when I did Soraya's show recently, I referenced Soul Man. So it's hilarious that we're both randomly referencing this 80s C. Thomas Howell comedy about a guy doing blackface.
Yeah, hilarious. Co-starring Justin Trudeau.
And James Earl Jones, who just looks like he wants to tear out C. Thomas Howell's heart the entire time.
I think they must have had his family hostage at the time. I can't understand why anybody of James Earl Jones' magnitude would be involved in that monstrosity, because it's not even funny.
No. Nope. One of the enduring mysteries of our ages: shadow people and why James Earl Jones was in Soul Man.
Yeah, there was a lot of that about the mid-80s, actually, if you dig into a lot of films of that era.
Brutal racism?
Well, there's things that I think are played for laughs. Weird Science is a scene where our two hapless heroes get shit-faced in a jazz club, and one of them starts talking like he's a black guy, and he's surrounded by loads of black guys. However, that makes me laugh, because I've seen people do that in the company of black people, as if they're trying to think that, hey, look, I'm one of you, and it's so cringingly awful that I think it captures it very well. So I look at it in that regard, that some people do that quite a lot. And so I don't think it's racist. I think it's taking the piss out of the people who do that. Personally, maybe I'm giving it too much credit, but that was my interpretation at the time. And every time I've seen it since, I don't understand why some people call that scene out, because I think they're deliberately misinterpreting what's going on. He's supposed to be an arsehole. He's not trying to be cool.
Right. Well, we don't have any similar excuse for what happens in Jingle All the Way.
No, or Short Circuit.
Oh God, yeah, boy, oh boy. Or what's his name? Hank Azaria for on The Simpsons for 20 years voicing Apu. I don't know how we got started talking about this, but anyway, we're gonna move on. I love how that's like, oh man, you're too woke. No, I'm not an asshole for those reasons, man. Like, you want people, you're trying to score points. No, I don't care what any of you think of me. I just don't want people to be dicks. Again, I'm a dick. I'm a dick for a lot of other reasons. I'm just not a dick for those reasons.
Yeah. My shittiness is not based on who you are. I just can't help it.
Yeah, that's it. Again, I'm shitty for lots of other reasons. I'm not a role model. Just I'm not a racist.
You're my role model.
Hey, boy, we got to talk. We got to find you some.
I've had worse.
Okay, that's
a lot
fair.
Worse.
That's fair. The ghost at my auntie's house. This happened when I was 19 years old in 2014, and it happened in Ontario. I was visiting my auntie who moved out to Ontario for the summer. She had bought a house that was built in the 90s or in one of the suburbs. Lord knows there's enough of them there. At this point in my life, I was very much aware of my ability to sense spirits. The house was fine upstairs, but her guest room was in the basement and where I would be staying for the next few weeks. I felt an immediate presence when I went down there, but I chalked it up to nerves initially. It was so slight that I thought maybe I was just being anxious. There was a bad vibe coming from her utility room where the water heater and storage were. The guest room was nearby, and a rec room where she had my little cousin's playroom set up. Every night, I had trouble falling asleep. The energy in the basement was so bad. I felt like I was being watched, and each night it got worse. The utility room had a door that was shut, but there was a small rectangle cut into the bottom, like a cat door. The utility room had a really bright fluorescent light that shone through the hole in the door and leaked into the hallway. I could see it at night, and it unnerved me. During the day, I was touring around the GTA, so it sucked that I wasn't getting restful sleep, but I figured whatever. I was 19 in the city, I just toughed it out. The last night of my visit, I had a horrible migraine that I just couldn't shake. I had an early flight back to New Brunswick in the morning and was still awake at 1:30. It felt like someone was in the room with me, disturbing me. I could hear little creaks and noises all night. I was unnerved, but not enough to leave. After staying up for a while watching YouTube videos and doom scrolling, I decided to try to force myself to sleep. So, I turned out the lights in the basement. Big mistake. Just as I had settled into the sheets with my head pounding, I heard a loud bang and crashing noise from within the room. It sounded like a shelf of books falling. It scared me so badly, but angered me too. I flicked the lights on and was amazed to discover nothing had fallen or moved. I searched the entire basement for fallen objects or an intruder, fueled with frustration and rage from my lack of sleep and my pounding head. I wasn't scared anymore. I was just pissed. Yay, teenage rage replacing fear. I checked the utility room, nothing. But I felt the presence, so I yelled out, "Leave me alone, I'm fucking pissed off, I have a migraine and a flight in the morning. Fuck off." And it did. I managed to get very little sleep and had to do my morning flight on 3 hours of sleep. I'm not sure what or who it was, but I knew there was a presence there. It felt like it had gotten stronger every day that I dwelled. I felt like I wasn't invited. My auntie said I was just imagining things, but she told me I could stay upstairs next time. She acts like she doesn't believe in paranormal stuff, but I know she does. I could tell when I was recounting the story that she knew more than she let on. She has since sold that house, and I often wonder if the new residents have any experiences. I mean, you want to tell me something in Ontario is sucking the life out of young people? Yeah, I'd believe it. I mean, mostly it's the landlords, but I believe also the ghosts. Actually, my landlord, he applied for, it's a property management company that owns it. They applied for special relief because of an unexpected tax burden. They want to raise the rent above the minimum that they're allowed to raise it. So everyone in the building just kind of bent over and went, "Okay, yes, sir," But there is an appeal process, and you can submit a counterpoint if you want. And I knew it was fucking pointless, but I did it anyways. So I went through the entire filing that they did, and I looked at their figures, and I went and I pulled the property deed from the land title office, proving that the property had been paid off the year before, so they were free and clear on the property. I ran the numbers for what they claimed was their monthly gross income, projected that out to a year. This tax change represented exactly 1.7% of their annual income. And I said, "So you want to pass this on to taxpayers?" because apparently the government is now in the business of supporting private companies' balance sheets. And they didn't send me a note that was a giant middle finger that said yes underneath it, but that's essentially what I got back. So I'm sure we'll be paying more than 1.7% increase too, these motherfuckers. I'm sorry, Felicia, this took away from your story entirely.
Brennan Storr, property anarchist.
Property bastard. The thing is, I was a landlord. I get it. There are expenses. I understand. I'm fine. You know, if you have like undue expenses, yeah, it's got to come from somewhere, right? Like without you, we don't have fucking a place to live. I don't want to be an owner. It's a pain in the ass. But when you're demanding special relief because of a 1.7% change in your $2 million annual balance sheet, fuck you.
And the horse you came in on.
I think the horse should get to fuck you too. The horse didn't do this. Anyways, I should stop. This isn't about ghosts. This is just angry socialist Brent who doesn't want to have to pay more rent because he wants to spend the money on booze.
You'll be on Antifa next.
Oh, man. Anyways, where was I? Yes. The ghost in Felicia's aunt's house. I mean, I think this is one of those cases where you get like energy or things hiding in places that aren't often used.
Yes.
I really do think that's a thing there, because it just sounds like it sounds actually like my grandmother's sewing room that didn't often get used, and so it just had this real weird vibe to it, or like my grandpa's workshop as well. You know, it just had this weird disused vibe, and had a rock wall, and I always used to feel like the rock wall, there was something off about that. It was like exposed, it was unfinished wall. It was very odd.
I must admit, I do find some basements in North America quite terrifying.
Oh, really?
They just seem to be like a bit of brick, and then there's like loads of mud tunnels and stuff. You know, I'm expecting Buffalo Bill to be down there.
I can't remember if I told you this, but my uncle's house, when I was a kid, he lived in the house that my mom and her siblings grew up in. And down in the basement, as I recall, there was just a hole in the wall so deep you could stick your arm into it.
I'm very glad you said your arm.
My ego is large, but not that large.
What, your leg?
Okay, that makes more sense than what I said. Or face, or head. Yeah, no, I jumped to a conclusion there that says a lot about me. Okay. Yep, that's fine.
Might be just if you want to rest your arm.
I think we should just sail on past this to Felicia's last story.
I will assist you with that endeavour. My paternal grandmother revisiting me. One last story, and one that I hesitate to tell people because it's dark, and often the subject of grandparents dying is sensitive for most people. For some context, I'm estranged from my paternal side of the family. The parents got divorced. It was messy, and my father is an arsehole. It's a long story. So I've never been close to my paternal side of the family for a myriad of reasons. One of them being most of them were terrible people, and my mother didn't trust them. I'd go to their house for Christmas for awkward family dinners and forced gatherings, but that was about it. They never made an effort to be close to me, and I feel like this is partially to do with racism and my mother putting up strong boundaries. My paternal grandmother, who was a non-native person, and I were never close, but I got to see her about once or twice a year, and for one of my birthdays she took me out to a restaurant and we got onto the subject of ghosts. She told me that she believed in ghosts and knew that there was something on the other side, and told me a few stories that she'd had, personal experiences, and how a hand had pushed her just as she was nodding off whilst driving a car, which had woken her up and probably saved her from a car crash once. I was very intrigued, and that was probably the longest and best conversation we ever had. Fast forward past the divorce and the estrangement, and she passed away in 2018. I hadn't seen her in over 4 years at that point. Honestly, I was never that close to her, so the death didn't have a huge impact on me. As I'm closer to my indigenous side, my maternal grandfather's death shattered me. But I did feel bad that she'd passed. I was living in America at the time and I saw her obituary, but I didn't attend the funeral. I was more pissed that my paternal grandfather had moved on and sold their house very quickly, like alarmingly quick. Within months of her passing, he'd had it all ready to go. He was most likely cheating on his wife. But anyway, he sold their house and moved away, and now their house is located on a street next to the hospital in the town nearest us. In 2023, my husband had needed medical attention, and I was stuck waiting in the ER. It was early morning, and I was tired, so I decided to do a Tim Hortons run. I started driving, and then I remembered that my father's parents' house was down the street. and I could cut through there to get to the Tims faster. I also thought, I hadn't seen that house in ages, and I was curious. So I had a drive down the street, and I stopped in front of the old house for a second to study it. It seemed like new people were living there, but something felt off. There was a strangeness in the air, looking into the dark windows of the house. It was a mid-century modern from the 1950s, and there was a vibe. I thought, and after a moment of thanking the universe that I no longer had to spend horrible, awkward Christmases in that house, I drove off to get my coffee. My husband was okay, he was discharged, and we went home. That night, I dreamt I was in the old house. The furniture was different, and it was night time. I heard my paternal grandmother's voice calling out. This is strange, but she was under the floorboards and came up from there. I was shocked to see that she was a corpse, like a zombie, and she looked at me and gasped and said, "Felicia!" I remember her climbing out of the floorboards and grabbing my shoulders. She scared me, but I could tell she was distressed, like she hadn't been able to talk to anyone in ages. She told me that she was confused and lost, and she didn't recognise the house or the people in it, and she was wondering where had everybody gone. She didn't understand what was happening. I steeled myself and got over the shock of her appearance, and then I told her that time had moved on. I asked her what she meant, and she asked where the family members were. I woke up very suddenly from this dream, although I didn't open my eyes, and this was because I felt a presence in the room. I very clearly remember feeling someone standing over me at the side of the bed, so I knew someone was there. I didn't want to open my eyes because I was afraid that she'd be standing there looking like she did in my dream, so that meant I kept them shut, and I tried to act like I was sleeping. I eventually fell back asleep, but that looming presence never left. This isn't unique to me. There are other people in my culture who dream, and when they do, it's like a twilight state of living. It doesn't feel like an actual dream where you're stuck reliving grades in school or something random. It's like being in another world. It's hard to describe, but I know exactly when I am having one of these twilight dreams, when I'm half awake and asleep. They call it travelling, and you can see ghosts and spirits in this state and talk to them. I knew that I was travelling and legitimately believed her spirit did speak to me. When I fell back asleep, I was back in the house, and she was there, but this time she was more like herself. Not as scary. However, she did meet me with the same urgency and told me that I had to help her, that she needed help. I told her that everybody had moved on and it was now 2023, not 2018. I woke up and it was morning before we got to finish the conversation. She finished me again the next night, and I knew that I had to do something. I'd found out that she'd been cremated, but had a headstone. My evil grandfather, lol, the one I don't like, is Mormon, and I'm not sure if he respected her wishes for death. I could tell that she was extremely confused and lost. This kind of hurt me since I saw on her obituary and online that people were hoping that she was in a better place, and it pained me to think that she was still stuck in the old family house, wandering around lost and confused. Even though I didn't like my father's side of the family, and I didn't feel very close to her, my empathy was strong. I felt myself wanting to help. I mean, I wouldn't want anyone's soul to be lost and confused like that, and out of all the offenders in that family, she was one of the least problematic. Not saying she wasn't, she was passive, but still. I felt that I was the only one she could communicate with, and I think she knew this too. After all, I'd told her that when I was younger, I'd had experiences. She was a Catholic, and with that in mind, when I did my ceremony to help her, my grandfather had taught me how to help spirits move on, so I did that. I did a ceremony, and I explained to her that time had moved on, and she needed to rest and to move on with it. I told her to let go, and hopefully go to heaven. Now, I don't believe in Catholicism or heaven or hell, but for a Catholic spirit, I use these words to convey the concepts and out of respect for her personal beliefs. I told her to move on towards heaven, and she did. She went out of the house and into the field near the subdivision where there's a beautiful horizon. It's hard to explain, but when I do ceremonies and connect with spirits, I get messages. And I don't care if people believe me or not. After I did this and blessed her, she never came back. I was going to double down and go to her old church to get a priest to help, but I don't think that was necessary in the end. I think I did help her out. I'm not sure if it was just me giving her an update on life and telling her to let go, but I'm glad that I did. We may not have been close, but I can understand why she attached to me. In hindsight, I have a theory that her spirit was lingering in the old house, and that day when I stopped by, she saw me or followed me. That would make sense, given that I was probably the only person she'd recognised for a while. Most of the family of my father had moved away and on to other cities, and I'm glad at the end of the day that I helped her. In my lifetime, I find spirits will notice me, that I can sense them, and then they latch on to me. I've had this happen to me so many times that it doesn't scare me much anymore. Can't really explain it. I'm still trying to understand these things as I live my life and learn more. I think it's one of those things where I've just had to face it head on, because I can't ignore it. I remember that there were a number of years when I was a teen where I was super atheistic and intentionally saying I didn't believe in anything because I was afraid. I've since learned more and become more open-minded and have faced these things head on, even if I don't completely understand it. Probably my cultural ties. I know that it's a very normal thing, traditional for us. I know I'm of sound mind, I don't drink or do drugs, and I know that my mental health is mostly okay. Nothing that would make me hallucinate, just run-of-the-mill anxiety. I have more stories, but these are my highlights. I have something strange happen about once every 6 months to a year, and some are underwhelming. Some are more interesting. You can certainly say that again, Felicia.
Yeah, I'm hard-pressed to imagine stories that are more interesting than the ones you've shared with us, but if you ever want to send them in, feel free. That is truly fascinating stuff.
I kind of get her train of thought there with the tethering of her paternal grandmother's spirit there.
You think so, eh? In what way for you?
So I think if you look at it in an open-minded, believable way, that if we are to accept that spirits in some cases have recollection memories and can communicate and yet be trapped in their previous occupancy, they would be looking for something familiar to connect to help them wherever. And I think that choice of route to go get some coffee and the fact that Felicia decided to stop outside the house was enough for the connection, for her to think, well, I know that she's the only member of my family who's open-minded about this and wants to talk about it. Obviously, she wouldn't go to Felicia's mum because I think those wounds would be too raw, obviously. And so the granddaughter would make a better connection. And also the fact that they'd had conversations in the past talking about the supernatural and the other side. And therefore they both realised that that was something that they were open to. So for me, I think Felicia's reasoning makes sense. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it's certainly, I completely concur with the belief there. I think that's a fairly plausible explanation. If you believe in such things, why not?
Oh, 100%. I do think there's absolutely that resonance between people. I think living or dead, we are drawn to the people like us. And so, no, I have no problem believing that whatsoever. And I do think, too, for people who are stuck, someone like Felicia who has that ability, or anyone who has that ability to perceive these things, I think they burn brighter. I think they appear more there. So I think that's sort of a trope that I very much believe in. I think you are more attractive to the lost because you are just, you're more on their side of reality than you are this one. No, not more, but more than other people are, I think.
Yes.
And like I said, I think you're right. I think if there's this connection between them, however slight it may be, then I think you're more likely to see them. It goes back to when we've talked about people being upset that they're not getting visits from their loved ones in the manner that they kind of thought they might. I think it's like, well, we don't necessarily always have the connections with people that we want to have. It sounds shitty, but it's just one of those things. Some people we like more than others. Some people like us more than they like other people. Some people like us less than we would like them to.
Yeah, not every ghost that comes back is Jacob Marley.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah, sometimes it's a whiff of perfume.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing. Yeah, you never know how these things are going to come. You can't have an expectation because you're dealing with something fundamentally unknown. If you, actually, Nick and I were talking about this today because she, we were talking about how when she was a CSI in the UK, she wanted and then moved here. She wanted to get back into working in that role, and because of the way things are over here, she couldn't do what she'd done there here. And her entire, since she's come over, so it's been 16 years now, she's been like trying to go back in that direction, but we've realized that she can't ever be the thing she was here. And now she's ended up in a situation that it still deals with all those things, but it's not exactly the thing she wanted, but she's very happy with where she's ended up. And I was saying that I think a lot of people, they get a version of the thing they want, like the thing that's closest to what they can possibly get, with the other compromises in their life, but they're not happy because it's not exactly the one thing they said in exactly the way they wanted it. So to them, it's like, oh, it didn't exist. I didn't get what I wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we spend too far looking back rather than accepting what we've got and doing what we want to do, really, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I have a great example, but I can't use it because too many people are going to know what I'm talking about. So I'll just leave that there. But yeah, no, I think that's expectation is the destroyer of joy, I think.
Yes.
But in this case, my expectations were more than met by Felicia and Senia's stories, and I am deeply grateful to both of you for sending them in. I think we've kicked off season 10 in the best possible way.
Scaring the listeners witless.
Exactly. That's what we do here. Scare the shit out of you, make you laugh, make you slightly annoyed that we're going on a little too long, and then back to the stories.
Just you crowbarring your woke agenda in.
I know, I'm such a bastard who wants people to just be left alone and treated like fucking human beings. What a prick I am. All right. Well, again, thank you to Senia and Felicia for writing in. And if you have a story, we'd love to hear from you. ghoststoryguys@gmail.com is the best place to send it. But you can also find us on Facebook as The Ghost Story Guys finally made a group. We're on Reddit as r/Ghost Story Guys podcast. And we are on Instagram as The Ghost Story Guys. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hey there, listeners. Before you reach for that skip 15 seconds ahead button, I promise you this isn't an ad. We wanted to take a minute to talk to you about mental health. On this show, I've always tried to be as honest and open as possible about my struggles with depression and anxiety, because even though we've come a long way towards acknowledging the very real damage these things can do, there is still way too much lingering stigma about reaching out for help. And when you start to feel like there's no help, it's easy to start feeling like there's no hope. But Paul has joined me today to remind you there is always hope and there's always help.
We're not going to try and talk you out of self-harming right now, because we know that's not how it works. Instead, what we wanted to do was tell you something now and hope that should things get bad, you'll remember it and make a phone call or send a text message before you make any permanent decisions. As someone who knows all too well just how important mental health can be, it's never too late to reach out.
In Canada, the number to call is 133-456-4566. In the USA, the new number to call is 988. That's 988.
In the UK, the number to call is 116123, or text SHOUT, that's SHOUT, to 85258. In Australia, the number to call is 131114.
However bad shit seems, it will pass. And no matter what your brain might be telling you at any given moment, and believe me when I say I know this intimately, there are people who love you and people who care deeply about how you treat yourself. Should a time come when you find yourself despairing, please know that we've both been where you are, and there is a way back to the world. Take care. Welcome back. The Ghost Story guys are Mark Semler, who helps manage our Facebook community, Luke Greensmith, who helps find our stories. He's also host of the Luke Lore podcast, available everywhere. Find podcasts live.
Our paranormal conductor is Mr. Brennan Storr.
And of course, my friend and co-host is the one, the only, the inimitable Paul Bestall, the paranormal Johnny Carson himself, host of Mysteries and Monsters. Paul, what's coming up on M&M?
Man-eating plants. Plants that eat people.
Feed me Seymour.
Yes. Hundreds of stories of these from around the world. And Kevin J. Gould, who's been on a couple of times previously, has written a whole book collecting newspaper accounts of these legendary stories from every continent. And you'll quickly discover that the man-eating tree of Madagascar is not alone in the world of carnivorous plants. And so we dive into some of those with some horrendous plant-based puns involved as well, which started as an accident, and then we both seem to get excited trying to crowbar them into the conversation. So
I expect nothing less.
So yes, I'll be diving into the legends of man-eating plants.
Very cool. Well, I'm excited to hear that one. And where can everyone find you online?
You can find Mysteries and Monsters across most social media platforms and podcast sites.
Fabulous. I'm Largely the Truth on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky. And if you want to hear me or read me nerding out about movies, you can follow me on Letterboxd. You can also find my horror fiction show, Fear Daily, everywhere. Find podcasts live. And you can also hear me narrating audiobooks on Audible. Yeah, I read not only my own book, A Strange Little Place, The Paranormal Secrets of Revelstoke, British Columbia, but the series These Haunted Times, written by Ruth Roper Wilde. Again, you can find me narrating those on Audible. Paul, my friend, any guest spots coming up?
Well, I've been falling around. I thought, why not over Christmas? So I'm guested on the first part of a conversation with Kate Ray on Hare in the Hawthorn, talking about poltergeists. And we'll be doing the second part of that because her internet collapsed. And so we had to sort of shelve that. And I will also be appearing on an upcoming episode of Into the Fray, which should be out, I believe, by the time this hits the airwaves for the older listener there. And so, yeah, those two. And I will be returning to join my friend Bob Brown in the new year in regards to appearing on his show. But once I know that's all up and running, I shall let you know. I've got a couple of others in the pipeline, but I think people are sick to death of me after appearing on 2 shows in a month. I might give it a few weeks.
I've appeared on Where Did the Road Go twice in a month, man. You're fine. We cannot get sick of you. I wouldn't worry about that.
Well, thank you very much.
And as for me, yeah, I've been on Where Did the Road Go? I was on an episode with Saxon talking about shadow people. We had a really interesting conversation, including one that went into the Patreon bonus, talking about diphenhydramine, the people who use Benadryl to have hallucinations, often of shadow people. And what I thought was really fascinating, some of the reading I did on that, is they still don't understand the mechanism by which those hallucinations are had. They know that, they know how things like entheogens, like psilocybin or LSD, they know how those cause hallucinations. But scientists are still trying to figure out how diphenhydramine Benadryl can cause hallucinations. They just have not isolated that mechanism, which I thought was really interesting stuff. So I was on that, and I think that's it. And of course, if you want to hear any of mine and Paul's guest spots, they're all archived at ghoststoryguys.com. There's a blog there where you can find both of our appearances, and you can also find my appearances archived along with some writing of mine now at largelythetruth.substack.com.
Do you not think they should have worked out why Benadryl makes people hallucinate before they put it out for sale?
Well, that is a great point. I don't know if they expected people to take like 12 of them at one time. Because
really?
That seems...
Really?
Okay, I wouldn't have expected that, but then, I am naive in such matters.
I've seen enough documentaries about the American pharmacy industry, mate.
Just go huff glue. It seems easier. I'm not don't huff glue. Don't do that. That's a bad idea.
Don't do solvents. Blech.
No, don't do solvents. But I'm just saying, it just seems easier than taking 10 Benadryl. Why do you want to see the fucking Hat Man anyways, man? Most people spend their lives trying to get away from that shit. And you guys are here just downing handfuls of pink magic to go knock on his door.
They're the kind of people in horror films where somebody hears a funny noise in the basement and they're the ones that go, let's go see what that is. No.
Yeah, let's go neck first.
Yeah. Let me have some Benadryl to commute with the other side.
So yeah, don't take 10 Benadryl. Don't do solvents. But do find our appearances at ghoststoryguys.com.
No Benadryl required.
No, exactly. No, zero Benadryl required. And if you want to have hear more conversations like this between myself and Paul, of course, you can head to our Patreon by clicking the link in the show notes or going to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. We have bonus conversations where we'll yak about shit like this or movies or music or whatever for up to an hour, usually once a month. And then I also do bonus shows where I will read spooky articles and comment on them. Or again, as I mentioned in the A segment, I've been reading Hans Holzer's Ghosts I've Met for listeners and becoming increasingly infuriated at what a publicity whore Hans Holzer is. Was. Yeah.
Unless you know something that we don't.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hans Holzer. No. I just take 10 Benadryl and I start talking in his voice.
The haunting was very interesting.
That guy was such a dong. Anyways, you have to become a patron to find out why I think Hans Holzer was a dong. But again, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes, heading to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys, or becoming a friend of the cabin via Apple Podcasts or YouTube. And of course, you can also get things like our monthly live stream. And if you're really nuts, you can sign up to become part of a little something that's pretty close to our hearts, even closer than the regular patrons. It's a little something that we like to call Ghost Force. That's right. Patrons who sign up at the $20 level are members of Ghost Force, an eternal order of knights holding back the tide of darkness simply with handfuls of Benadryl. Might have to start calling this episode Handfuls of Benadryl. This time around, the members of Ghost Force are Atham Saragon,
Amy Chamberlain,
Beth Riley Cadwell,
Beth Whitaker,
Crazy Mom Canada,
CT,
Dexterous,
Eric Abel,
Hannah Brown,
Jade Moores,
Jenny Bonanani, Jenny Bonanani, Jenny Bonanani,
Jennifer Mullen,
Joseph Como,
Kissing Kate Barlow,
Liam Hudak,
Mara Noriega,
Mark Semler,
Marilyn Hanson,
Michelle Randall,
Peter Gunn 08.5,
Robin Teen,
Rockin' Ronnie Shenanigans,
Shannon Steyer,
Trash Panda Kids,
Trent Cannon,
Zippy, oh!
You are the few, you are the spooky, and like two of you are going to understand why Paul just made those noises, and I love it.
Oh, yes.
It gets worse. You are Ghost Force.
Oh, oh, dear me.
Oh, for real, guys. Again, we appreciate every single one of our patrons, past, present. But Ghost Force, you are a special breed, and we love you dearly. Thank you so much for your support. And of course, if you'd like to have your name read out in that periodically unhinged segment, you can do so by becoming a member of Ghost Force on Patreon. And again, you can make us say just whatever you want. You can make your name almost whatever you want. I'm a giant whore, and I'll say just about anything. Paul is slightly less of a whore. He has a few more standards than I do. But you pay $20, brother. You go for it.
That's just what Zippy would do.
There you go.
Oh, yes.
WWZD. What would Zippy do? All right. Well, again, if you want some Ghost Story Guys merch, you can head to our website at ghoststoryguys.com. We have all kinds of cool stuff, stickers, t-shirts, mugs. You'll also find all our show notes there and our public appearances linked as well. Our theme song is Radio, Into the Darkness We Go. It was composed and performed by Peter Kursov of Pizzanta Music. You can find Pizzanta Music streaming everywhere you get your tunes. And that, of course, is streaming courtesy of Night Harvest Recordings, the Ghost Story Guys house label. And I think that's going to do it.
We'll be back next week. But until then,
off into the wilds of 2026 we go.
Yeehaw!
It's a real strain of anti-intellectualism going through British television at that time. Just going to throw it out there. Now come along, kids. Let's burn these books. Come along, Flop Diddley. Play the book-burning song. Knowledge is scary. Knowledge is bad.
Have you been talking to the chemtrails people again? Okay.
No, I'm cutting that out of the show. We're just not. Nope.